Greetings, children. Welcome to the online classes. This is Aishwarya. Please like and subscribe the channel for the further updated videos. The following video is for class 6, subject General Science, chapter 4, sorting materials into groups, part 4. Now, in this chapter, we are mainly concentrating on the properties of matter. What are the different properties of matter? As we recall from the previous videos, the different properties of matter are appearances, hardness, soluble or insoluble, objects may float or sink in water, and transparency. I request you all to follow the video with the textbook. It will be easier for you to learn the lesson. Now, in the previous videos, we learned about appearances, hardness, soluble or insoluble, right? So now we are going to see the chopped objects which may float or sink in water. Float means when some objects float on water, that means the weight will be lesser than that of water. That means you can see the dried leaf and the water ball, plastic ball which floats on the water. The things that can be on the upper end of the water are the objects which can float. And the object which sink means some object which sink in water because they have their weight is more than that of the water, like your key, a spoon, a key, or a coin, or a phone. All these things, they sink in the water because their weight is more heavier than the water. That is one of the properties of all the objects that depend on the properties of matter. Next, we are going to learn about transparency. You might have played a game of hide and seek. Think of some place where you would like to hide so that you are not seen by others. Why do you choose such places? Would you have tried to hide behind a glass window? Obviously not, as your friends can see through that and spot you. Can you see through all the materials? Those substances or materials through which things can be seen are called transparent materials. That means like a glass. If you take a glass or the example, the aquarium, you can see what is inside. So that material becomes a transparent materials. Now glass, water, air, and some plastics are the example of transparent materials, right? Now shopkeeper usually prefers to keep biscuits, sweets, and other eatables in the transparent containers of a glass or plastic so that the buyers can easily see the item. Usually when you visit the bakery also, you can see that it is covered with the glass, so that it is covered and you can see through it and you can ask for what you want from that shop. Now, on the other hand, there are some materials through which you cannot be able to see. These materials are called opaque materials. OPAQUE, opaque objects. Like most of the things are opaque objects, like a book, a phone. You cannot see through it. You cannot see through those objects. A wooden box, a cardboard. All these things are an example of a opaque object. That means you cannot see through it. The light cannot pass through the opaque object, um, a wooden box or anything. So you cannot see what is kept in a closed wooden box, a cardboard carton, or a metal container, right? Even the boxes in your kitchen, some metal containers, the steel containers, you cannot see what is inside. But if you keep a glass container or a plastic container, you can identify what is the material that is present inside. Now, do we find that we can group all the materials or objects without confusion on either opaque or transparent? Is it possible? Now there is one small activity. Take a sheet of paper, look through it towards the lighted bulb. Make a note of your observation. That means when you see it, you can just observe the light. Now put 2 to 3 drops of some oil and spread it on the sheet of the paper. To just to one drop, two drop is more than enough. When you spread it and look again towards the lighted bulb, same sheet, you should look towards the lighted bulb through that portion of the paper when on which the oil has been spread. Do you find that the bulb is more clearly visible than before? Of course, but you can see clearly through the oiled paper. Can you see clearly through the oiled paper? Is everything on the other side of it visible? Perhaps not. The material through which an object I'm sorry, the material through which an object can be seen but not clearly are known as translucent objects. Translucent. Translucent object. Now, the examples for translucent objects are a frosted glass, thin fibers. You can see what is on the other side, but you cannot see it clearly as you see it in an aquarium glass or those kind of glasses. A colored plastic, a plastic clouds, you can see what is on the other side, but you cannot see it very clearly. Remember the oily patch on the paper when we tested food items, right? And on the other experiment in the previous lesson, when we tested the food items for fats, we tested for the paper, how on the oil that is present on the paper. So that is also an example for a translucent material. We can therefore group materials as opaque, transparent and translucent. Here is two different examples for transparent, opaque and translucent bulb. And transparent object can be a glass, translucent object is an oiled paper or a butter paper, then opaque object a fruit or a vegetable. You cannot see through those opaque objects. Now reading from the textbook, page number 32. Pahaley suggests covering the glass of the torch with your palm at the dark place. Switch on the torch and observe the other side of the palm. She wants to know whether the palm of your hand is opaque, transparent or translucent. This is something you can do at home. Take a torch, go into a dark room, cover the side of the opening side of the torch through your hand and turn on the torch. What can you see? We learned that materials differ in the appearances and the way they mix in the water or other liquids. They may float or they might sink or in the water, or may be transparent, opaque or translucent. That is what we learnt in the whole chapter about the different properties of the materials. Materials can be grouped on the basis of similarities or the differences in their properties. Now some materials will have appearances, same kind of appearances, or some materials will sink, some materials will float. Like this, there will be some similarities between different materials and some differences also in different materials. Now why do we need to group materials in everyday life? We often group materials for our conveniences. At home we usually store things in such a manner that similar objects are placed together, right? Such an arrangement helps us to locate them easily. Now in the school also, all the children that belong to 5th standard will be in one class. Now why don't we put first standard children in the 5th standard class? Because it will become difficult for them to find each other, because it will become difficult for us to find them, and it is difficult for them to sit in the 5th standard class and learn the lesson, right? So the properties also are important for the different materials. Similarly, now another example, in a grocery shop, when you usually go, the corner where the biscuits are kept are different, and the corner where the shampoos or different pulses and grains are kept are also different. You cannot keep the biscuit and the rice in the same place. You keep all the biscuits in one place, all the shampoos in one place, shampoo bottles in one place. Why do we do this grouping? Just to make it convenient for us. And there is another reason why we find such grouping usually useful. Dividing materials in groups make it convenient to study their properties and also observe any pattern in their properties. which you will be studying more in your later higher classes. Why it is important for us to know the difference in different properties of the materials, just so we can group them easily and we can understand their properties, which is very very important for us. Thank you children, stay at home, stay safe, take care of yourself and keep learning.